A good day to you. So, in class we talked about solving and graphing inequalities, except today we actually talked about and or inequalities and how we set those up. How do we solve and graph? Remember, graphing for this chapter we're talking about on a number line. So, this is our first problem that we had. It was an and inequality. And the thing about an and inequality, what we're going to be doing with an and inequality, okay, I don't even know where to write this, and, okay, means graph where they overlap, okay, graph where they overlap. So we're going to figure out, we're going to solve for x here, and figure out where both these graphs overlap. So in this case, we want to move the 5x by subtracting. So we have negative 10 is less than or equal to negative 2x. 3 minus 5, negative 2x. Now to get x by itself, we divide by negative 2. But remember, when you divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, you have to switch the inequality symbol. So this is going to give us positive 5 is greater than or equal to x. Okay, which we can also go ahead and flip around if we wanted to. X is less than or equal to 5. You can just go ahead and mirror the entire problem if you want. And now here, subtract 15. So you get negative 8 is less than for x. Then we divide by 4. So negative 2 is less than x. Again, if we want to switch that around, x is greater than negative 2. So if I were to graph each of these individually, this says x is less than or equal to 5. So we have our 5 here with the filled in circle because it's or equal to, and it's less than. This one says x is greater, open circle, than negative 2. So these are what the individual graphs of these look like, but we want to graph this on one number line. So I'm going to make one number line where my low limit goes on the left, because remember, the further left you go is the smaller the number. So I'm going to put my smaller number on the left, bigger number on the right. We know it's open at negative 2, closed at 5. And notice, for the and one it says, graph where they overlap. So from negative 2 is going to the right, but for the 5 it's going to the left. So this is what our graph is going to look like. It can't be further this way, because it doesn't overlap with the x being greater than negative 2. Nor can you go this way. So it's just in between those two values is where they overlap. Okay? So again, and inequalities, you only graph where they overlap, which is different from an or inequality. So we're going to do one of those. Now an or inequality, the way you can always tell if it's an or inequality is if it says the word or. Okay? Now we have here 3x plus 11 is greater than 2 or 8 minus x is greater than 4. Okay? That is a weird 8. Okay? Now for an or, you're going to graph the entire graph of both. So graph both answers. Okay? Completely. So it's not just where they overlap, but you're actually going to graph the entire graph of both on the same graph. So first we have to solve. So we're going to move the 11 by subtracting. So you have 3x is greater than negative 9. Then we're going to divide by 3, so x is greater than negative 3. Or, subtract the 8. We have negative x is greater than negative 4. And lastly, switch symbols to get rid of the negative, but therefore we have to switch the direction of the inequality. So we have x is greater than negative 3, or it's less than 4. So if you think about it, here's our one graph our smaller value is -3, our bigger value is 4, and this is, there's no or equal to, so therefore they're both open circles. This one says x is greater than -3. That means x is anything greater than -3. Because remember, we're graphing the entire graphs of both when it says or. It says or x is less than 4, so x is anything less than 4. So for this problem, since it's an or problem, since it's greater than our smallest value and less than our bigger value, this is going to cover the entire line. Because again, you graph the entire graph of both when you're talking about an or. Okay? Not many are going to look like this. You might have one or two. Most of them look like the next one we're going to do. But this is how you handle that. And again, or means you graph both answers completely. Okay? Now there is another type of or problem where it looks a little bit different. Our graph is going to look a little bit different. Okay, so the third problem we did in class was 5x plus 21 is less than or equal to 6, or 17 minus 3x is less than 5. So, again, we're going to handle each side separately. So we subtract 21. You have 5x is less than or equal to -15. And then we divide by 5, so x is less than or equal to -3. Or, subtract 17. So you have -3x is less than -12. And then we divide by -3. So you switch the direction of the symbol. -12 divided by -3 is 4. So now it says x is less than -3 or x is greater than 4. So we have our one number line. Our smaller value is -3. Our larger value is 4. Since it says or equal to, that means this is going to be a closed circle. Fill it in. Since this is not or equal to, it's an open circle. And this says x is less than -3. Since it says less, that means you're going to go to the left. That says x is greater than 4, so you go to the right. Now this is where what most of the or inequalities are going to look like when you graph it. Just not 100% of the time, but this is where a lot of them are going to look like, where they go in opposite directions. Okay? Just remember, since it's a number line, your smaller value goes on the left, your bigger value on the right. So be very careful with that. Alright, now that brings us to our very last problem. This last problem actually doesn't say and, or, and also it does not say or. It looks like this. -5 is less than 2y minus 9, which is also less than or equal to 5. So now we actually have basically two problems scrunched into one. Whenever it's set up like this, this is an and inequality. And you can know for sure whenever it's set up like this, whenever your graph is going to look like this, where you have the two values and it's going to be in between. 100% of the time when it's set up like this, where it doesn't say and or, we know it's an and inequality, which means every time it looks like this, your graph is going to look like that. Okay? We just need to figure out is it open or closed at those points, and what are these values. Every time it's set up like this. So keep that in mind. Now, we need to get y by itself still. So picture this. I'm putting finger marks all over the board. Picture this as 3 sections. Okay? We have 1 section, 2 section, 3 section. And just like with equations where you say, okay, if you're going to move something from one side to the other, whatever you do to one side, you do to both. Well, with these, since there's 3 sections, whatever you do to one section, you have to do to the other 2 as well. So the first thing we're going to do is add the 9. So since we added 9 here, we have to add a 9 there, and add a 9 on the left. Left, middle, right. So that gives us 4 is less than 2y, which is less than or equal to 14. And lastly, we need to get the y by itself, so we divide by 2. In the middle, on the left, and on the right. So you have 2 is less than y, which is less than or equal to 7. Now that we have y by itself, there you go. It's an and statement. So if we had to do a graph, we have our low limit, 2, high limit, 7. At 2, we know it's an open circle. 7, it's closed. And we're saying that y is in between those two values. Because y is greater than 2, but less than or equal to 7. So it's right in between 2 and 7. Anywhere in between. Okay? So again, shortcut to these of knowing what it actually just at least looks like is if it's set up like this, your graph is going to look like that, generally speaking. Okay? So good luck with that. Yeah, ask me questions at school if you need more help. So I hope you understood. And if you didn't, watch more, ask more questions at school. And yeah, good luck. So good luck with that. And today, what is today? Today is the 24th. So if you watch this video tonight and you tell me, here's an extra credit problem. Okay, the first one to come up to me tomorrow, if you watch this tonight, you'll be able to research this. The extra credit question will be this. On the San Francisco Giants, who is their rookie catcher who is catching for them now? The initials are BP, I'll tell you that. So you need to give me the answer tomorrow, the 25th, alright? So that'll be your extra credit question. There you go. Good luck.